there's multiple issues, but the one biggest problem I have, if I could change one thing, would be the practice to game ratio.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Igor Larionov. I said, how many games did you play when you were like 12? And he said, I don't remember playing a game until I was 12 or 13. He said, we just used cross ice, used the whole ice, 25, 30 kids on the ice working on pure skill, pure skill, pure skill. He said, I don't remember playing a game until I was 12 or 13. In Europe, they shoot for 3-to-1 practices to games. Here it's 1-to-1 in a lot of places. Crazy. Your kid, if you stopwatch your kid in a game, you'll be shocked at how little, it's like going to an NFL game. You know how much football you watch in an NFL game? It's about 14 minutes of football in 3 hours and 20 minutes, where they actually run plays. Now you take a 90-minute ice time block and you stopwatch your kid, you'll be appalled at how little he plays. When he could take that 90-minute ice block, that ice time, and skate for 90 minutes in a practice. Like, it's crazy. But I say this stuff, and these coaches, I remember talking to a coach 20 years ago. He's a Bantam coach in Minnesota. And I came in and speak to the coaches at the state high school tournament. And he said, my team went 66-14 this year. I don't remember the exact number, it was 80 games. And then, you know, so I'm doing the math. I'm not really good at math. I'm going, 80 games.
Harvard.
So how many practices did you have? He said, well, I don't know. I said, what was your team's grade point average? He goes, I don't know. I said, tell me these kids are junior. And he said, no, they're Bantams. 80 games. I said, you're an idiot. You should not be coaching. You should be in an institution somewhere. So to me, I think Ray's right, but I'll start with one, practice to game ratio. The notion you got to play 50 or 60 games when you're a Bantam.
At the fundamental level, there's the traditional game that we grew up with, and that's been played up till today. And we all recognize the traditional game as being, we start in September, we have our tryouts, or as Brian suggested, let's hurry up and get those tryouts done in April so that we can hit the pavement running at the end of August with our opener tournament. Why the rush? Why are we in such a hurry to get kids away from other sports and other activities to get them into the tryout to accelerate the start of the season in Alberta, only to have them finish in January? I've heard stories of families actually making a trip to Ontario in April to try out for teams because they're moving in September. So they know that so you talk about added expense in the game, that's a real challenge. But you know, we've started looking at programs like the First Shift program, of which that's a national initiative. We ran 36 of those programs last year. And I think Alberta's to be commended because, in Calgary there was 3 of them, in Edmonton there was 2 of them, there were a couple of other areas of the province. Red Deer hosted one. And, you know, when you start to offer programming that's like these 6-week modules, Monday night, at the same rink, at the same time, the number of parents that come up to you and say, I don't know who got this bright idea, but this works for us.
We went through the spring hockey thing with my older boy, and it was exactly what Brian referred to. It's a trap. In LA, when we were there, and some of you have heard me say this before, but you know, it became a recruiting tool. So your boy, if he was good enough, whoever had the best spring team would come to him and say, well, if you play on our spring team, we'll get you on our winter team as well. Yeah. So you know, my best intentions, and I mean, my background is here. This is where I started in 1983 as a summer student, working for Hockey Alberta, and so I attended these congresses, these general meetings, and you know, I was dead set against spring hockey. So anyway, it came to a point where, you know, my wife and I sat across from each other and said, what do we do? Because he was still able to play. At the time, he played baseball in Little League and did all those things too, but spring hockey ended up being what he did, and had some okay experiences with it, but it still sort of bothers me to this day.
I do believe there is a way to run spring hockey that is beneficial, because the reality is we are not getting rid of spring hockey. That is the reality. the game has evolved over the years. When Burke played, he might have skated a week before training camp. When I played, I would get on the ice maybe 2 or 3 weeks before training camp. You go a generation before that, I can guarantee you guys like Phil Esposito, Red Berenson, they never touched their skates until training camp started. So this is the evolution, okay? I am dead set against the game being played 12 months out of the year. Dead set against it. But the issue lies in the fact that the season starts so early. Some kids are finished in February. Now you have March, April, May, June, July, end of August, beginning of September. You have almost 6.5 months before your kid's on the ice again. That is why spring hockey was created. Okay? Mm-hmm. But you can run the program in the right fashion. The way we ran our program this year, emphasis we've talked about on practices to games, our dry land consisted of basketball, football, lacrosse. There are ways to do it. You don't have to be on the ice and it be hockey, hockey, hockey. And our program is 7 weeks long. We started on April the 12th. We ended on June 6th. Our boys have 2.5 months off before they're back on the ice. So there are ways to do it, in my opinion. I mean, I might be an anomaly up here, but being through it, like 4 years ago, I hated the word spring hockey and never wanted anything to do with it. But if it's done the right way, I think it's manageable and it works. Because it's not, you're not going to get rid of it now. The road we're down, you're not going to get rid of it, but we have to find a way to manage it properly.
If you take a look at the website Active for Life, if you take a look at the resources that are available, not only through Hockey Canada, but through Hockey Alberta. Hockey Alberta is Hockey Canada, let's be clear. Hockey Alberta represents hockey in this country, in this province, and it's important to look at the resources that are available. It's important to pick up phones and talk to people like Justin Fessick or the 6 regional center guys who are running LTPD camps now where they want to introduce the multi-sport concept. So, you know, sometimes the programming that you run in spring can be positive because you can actually trick people into having a multi-sport experience. You bring them into a camp, you put them on the ice for an hour, but for the other 3 hours of the day, you're putting them in multi-sport experiences. And you know what you're doing when you do that? You're creating an alignment with other sports. I recently had meetings with Soccer Canada, Baseball Canada, Basketball Canada. We want to produce PSAs that talk about multi-sport engagement. I really think that if Steve Nash wanted to play hockey, he would have been a fantastic hockey player. Because if you watch a video with Steve Nash called Training Day, again on YouTube, you'll see a guy that can dribble a basketball, riding a skateboard through the middle of a traffic jam in New York City, playing soccer, playing tennis. Brendan talked about athleticism and growing up in an environment where he got to play all these sports. If you need to create a situation in a spring environment that introduces kids to multi-sport, then do it that way.